Tony Todd. In a moment of heart-wrenching compassion, we gather to celebrate the extraordinary life of Tony Todd, a man whose journey from a curious child in Washington, D.C. to an icon of film, television, and stage was defined by both luminous triumphs and poignant challenges. Born on December 4, 1954, in Washington, D.C., Tony Todd's life was set against the backdrop of a city teeming with history, culture, and an unspoken undercurrent of struggle. Raised in a working-class environment, he learned early on the power of resilience and storytelling. His love for performance was ignited in school, where he discovered that words and emotions could transform reality. He wasn't just drawn to acting, he needed it. Determined to pursue the craft seriously, he attended the University of Connecticut, where he studied theater. But it was his time at the prestigious Eugene O'Neill National Actors Theater Institute that refined his raw talent into a force capable of commanding any stage. There, he learned discipline, presence, and the art of making an audience hold its breath. Theater was his proving ground, and he carried those lessons throughout his entire career. Todd's first steps into film and television in the 1980s were marked by small but powerful roles that showcased his deep voice, towering presence, and intense gaze. He made his feature film debut in Sleepwalk, 1986, but his first significant break came in Platoon, 1986, Oliver Stone's harrowing Vietnam War epic. As Sergeant Warren, he stood among a powerhouse cast that included Willem Dafoe, Tom Berenger, and Charlie Sheen. Even in a supporting role, Todd was unforgettable. His commanding performance exuded both authority and quiet dread, a foreshadowing of the characters that would later define his career. He continued to carve out space in the industry, appearing in shows like 21 Jump Street and MacGyver throughout the late 80s. Everything changed in 1992. When Candyman arrived in theaters, it was more than just another horror movie. It was a seismic cultural moment. Tony Todd's portrayal of the vengeful Daniel Robitaille, better known as Candyman, was haunting, tragic, and seductively terrifying. He wasn't a mindless slasher villain. He was Shakespearean, a ghostly figure whose presence evoked sorrow as much as fear. The film, adapted from Clive Barker's The Forbidden, was a gothic horror tale infused with social commentary, particularly about race and urban legend. Todd's performance carried the weight of the film, elevating it from a simple fright fest to a cinematic experience that lingered in the minds of audiences for decades. He later reflected on the role. It was an opportunity to play a horror character with depth, with history. He wasn't just a monster, he had a reason for being, and I knew that if I took this role, it would follow me forever. I was okay with that. Indeed, it did. The film was a hit, spawning 2 sequels, Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, 1995, and Candyman, Day of the Dead, 1999. While the sequels failed to capture the same magic as the original, Todd's presence remained magnetic. He embraced the role, knowing it had permanently etched his name in horror history. Around the same time Candyman was taking over pop culture, Todd starred in Tom Savini's remake of Night of the Living Dead, 1990, as Ben, a role originated by Dwayne Jones in the 1968 classic. This was no small responsibility. Jones's portrayal was groundbreaking, and stepping into those shoes was daunting. But Todd delivered a performance filled with desperation, courage, and raw emotion, making the character his own. While the film itself faced mixed reviews at the time, it later gained a cult following, with many praising Todd's performance as one of the best in zombie cinema. He wasn't done with horror yet. Over the years, he would lend his deep, bone-chilling voice to projects like Final Destination, 2000, as the eerie mortician Bloodworth. While he appeared in multiple entries of the franchise, the first film in particular benefited from his performance, as he became an ominous guide to the doomed protagonists. For all the triumphs, Tony Todd's career was not without struggles. Despite his talent, Hollywood often pigeonholed him. The success of Candyman meant he was frequently typecast in horror and villain roles, sometimes limiting his opportunities. There were dry spells, periods where he worked steadily but without major recognition. Films like Shadow Builder, 1998, and Minotaur, 2006, came and went with little fanfare, but Todd never stopped working. His dedication to the craft was unwavering, and he took on every role with the same level of intensity, whether it was a leading part or a single-scene cameo. In his later years, Todd continued acting and engaging with fans at conventions, embracing the horror community that had embraced him decades earlier. He remained a mentor to young actors, always willing to share advice and stories about his time in the industry. On November 6, 2024, at the age of 69, Tony Todd passed away in Marina del Rey, California, from stomach cancer. His death sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, as fans and colleagues alike mourned the loss of a man whose presence had been both fearsome and comforting. Tony Todd was more than just Candyman. He was a performer of immense depth, a man who carried the weight of his roles with grace, and an artist who never stopped pursuing his passion. He was a horror icon, a mentor, and a storyteller whose deep voice will echo through cinema forever. His legacy is a reminder that fear, when told through the right lens, can be just as poetic as it is terrifying. His performances haunted us, but they also made us feel something real. If you've made it this far, thank you for staying and listening. I hope you enjoyed. If you love hearing about the lives and deaths of entertainment legends, subscribe for more untold stories that peek behind the curtain of Hollywood's greatest stars.